Why, hello, good morning or good afternoon. Let me see here. Let me check my mic. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you guys are dialing in from. It is 1 p.m. here in San Francisco right now on Tuesday, December 2nd, and we're coming to you live for our Data Connectors webinar. We do these webinars every single week. We typically alternate between onboarding webinar, basically the Julius 101. We did that one last week. And then we also do alternating ones on data connectors, what we'll cover today, and then also notebooks, which we covered, I think, 2 or 3 weeks ago now. Hopefully by the end of today's webinar, you're going to have a better understanding of what data connectors are at Julius, how to set them up, how to use a data connector in your either chats, notebooks, or even in Slack now, and then some of the other data connectors that we have available to you as well. All of this is going to be recorded. We have all of our previous webinars on our YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube Live, and then you can see all of the previous recordings. We're coming up to the end of the year now. We started this webinar series back in July or June, I believe. Pretty cool to just interact with users, see how we could best just tell all the different functions and features that we've built at Julius. But it's also been really cool just to see the product develop over time, and hopefully that's what I could showcase in today's webinar too. Let me go ahead and switch over my screen. If this is the first time you've heard about data connectors, you could find them on, let me go to my screen here, on julius.ai, and you can go to the Data Connectors tab, and you can see all of the different connectors that we have available to you. You could think of a data connector as a way to connect your data. Pretty straightforward, easy to just plug in your data, so that way you could use it inside of Julius. Whenever you're doing any of your analytics, historically you had to download a CSV from somewhere or export your Excel file, then upload that into Julius whenever you wanted to analyze your data. We introduced data connectors because a lot of business users, a lot of organizations and enterprises have their data living inside of a warehouse somewhere. So you could just skip over that step of needing to download and export the data. You could actually just go straight to the source and just start using the data in Julius. So that's essentially what a data connector is. We have 3 or 4 main ways that you can connect data connectors, right? The first is the most traditional, your Google Drive, OneDrive, and SharePoint. These are just similar to just any file storage. You could just grab files directly from those 3 different platforms, and I'll show you now. I'm going to connect to my Google Drive, and then now you could actually go and upload files directly from your Google Drive account, which I'll show you here. And now whenever you go to upload file, you could actually select from Google Drive, and it'll bring up this window where you could select any of the files that you want to upload into Julius to analyze, right? So that's the most basic foundational data connector. So I'm going to do that here. We're going to let these upload. And then I'm going to ask Julius a basic question. Can you analyze this? Can you analyze these files? And just like uploading the files themselves, here Julius is going to write and execute the code in order to fulfill what I'm asking it to do. So again, that's using the Google Drive connector, and that's the most basic foundational connector is how I like to describe it. Also works exactly the same way for OneDrive. You could connect directly to your OneDrive, or if you have an organization, you could also connect to your SharePoint, and you could add in any files as needed into Julius to analyze. So here we see those here as well. One of the cool things about uploading or connecting your Google Drive to Julius is it gives you the ability to also export files back to your Google Drive too. So here we have this button, Export to Sheets. If we've generated a table or a visualization in Julius, you could export to Sheets like this. And what this will do is it'll open up this table itself inside of a Google Sheet for you to edit, update, filter, and make changes to, and we see that here. So here you can see all of the campaign data that I had uploaded from my Google Drive, and you can go ahead and make changes to it accordingly. So really handy. I use this a lot, especially when I'm working in a sheet myself and I want to analyze it in Julius. But if you open up the right side panel, sometimes you wanted to take a look at some of these tables a little bit more in depth. Maybe you wanted to add in your own formulas or maybe do your own filtering manually, or just to fact check some of the work that Julius is doing. So having this ability to just go right into a Google Sheet, super handy if you want to do one-off analysis and one-off auditing or one-off checking of the results. That's the basic connector. That's essentially the most you can do with the Google Drive connector at this point. It's not as advanced as some of our other connectors like Postgres or BigQuery or Snowflake, for example. And we'll talk through those as we go along and set those up. But in terms of just easiest one to get started, definitely go with your Google Drive or SharePoint. All right, let's go back to the data connectors page here. We'll go through some of these other data connectors that we have. I'm going to remove my Postgres connector. This will be the next one that we're going to walk through. If you just click on any one of these, it'll open up the connector setup page. You'll see all of the different information that you need to fill in order to set up this data connector in Julius. And on the right side here, you have a tutorial.
Monday.com, the opposite of it.
Sorry about that. Walking through how to actually set this up. So here we see myself walking through the setup for this connector, but then also the documentation too. So if you go to read documentation, it'll take you to a link in our docs about all of the different, oh, that's something that we'll need to fix. No, it just looks like middle clicking, it doesn't work. Interesting. This will bring up the page that has everything you need to set up that connector. So for the Postgres connector, we need the connection name, host, port, database, etc. And we'll walk through all of that today. In fact, in our documentation, you'll be able to find all of the information that you need in order to set up a connector. Has every single connector that we have available, all of the specific instructions for setting these up, and then even errors that you might run into and how to resolve those as well. But first, let's just walk through setting up a basic connector. Now, I'm going to cover Postgres because it's the most common connector that we have currently at Julius, but also it's a common way for a lot of folks who are either building something or working in an organization, startups, medium to even a lot of enterprises as well, might have their data in a Postgres database somewhere. So we're going to set this up. I'm going to pull up my credentials over here. Two different ways, and again, you could read this in the documentation of how to set up a Postgres connector. We have a direct method, basic, really straightforward, probably for 95% of cases, or SSH, which is a little bit more advanced, but depending on your IT or your organization setup, you might need to select this method. If you don't know, you can always ask your IT administrator, or you can just share with them the documentation and they can guide you as well. Here I'm going to select direct, really basic one. I have a username and password that I'm going to use, and I don't need an SSH setup. Here I'm going to put in the connection name. So here I'll call this something really familiar, something I'm going to be able to remember. I'm just going to call this my database. Put in your username. In my case, it's Postgres. My password, in this case, I'm going to copy and paste it from my password storage tool. I'm going to put in my host, which is the IP address for this connector. I'm going to paste in the port. And then finally, the name of this database, which here is Postgres. Once I have all this information filled in, I'm going to click Add Connection, and that'll bring up that window really, really quick. In this case, the connector is really fast, but if there's any errors that you might run into, it'll show you in that window there. And again, you can go to our documentation and read through any of the error logs. 95% of the time, it's going to be something to do with your credentials. So oftentimes if it's a password thing, or maybe you put in the wrong IP or port range, IP address range or port, you might need to address those as well. But again, we have that all outlined here in our documentation. Okay, before we start a chat with this, I'm actually going to open up the data connectors page again, just so I could show you a little bit more on how you can customize this connector before we even get started with it. We see that it's been added as a tile here. This is the database Postgres that I just added. And we see something here called learning progress. This is an indicator that shows how much Julius has learned about your database over time. Very similar to as if any analyst was using your database, you might need to explain to them certain tables, why you might use them. You might explain to them certain columns that you're using, how they relate and how they join tables together. That is demonstrated here in this learning progress. As Julius uses your connector over time and begins to work with you on analyzing your data with this connector, it improves this learning progress. Julius is learning about your tables, about your columns, and how everything relates to one another. And we'll demonstrate that in today's webinar in a little bit. Here, if we click on the Edit Custom Instructions, this will bring up all of the other things that you can customize about this data connector. If you have specific ways or specific instructions for using this connector, you could add those in here. Really common for maybe finance teams to define how they calculate things like ARR or which tables to go to. Or product teams, maybe there's specific users or user events tables that they need to use. Or even marketing teams, maybe there's specific ways that they should be querying the marketing data and how you segment your users. All of that is really good information that you could put into the custom instructions. Likewise, we have a data dictionary tab here. It's fairly new, very common for some companies and some organizations and data teams to have all of their columns and tables already mapped out and some of the definitions behind them. Maybe they already have a way of explaining like, hey, this is how column A relates to column B, or how table C relates to table D, right? You might have that all mapped out. If you do, you could add that all here as well. If you don't, no worries, just don't use this tab. But handy for those who do have it already mapped out. The other tab I'll talk about here is the filtered schema. Really handy. I think a lot of companies, Julius included, have hundreds of tables that we're querying. So sometimes you might want to focus down the scope of what Julius is going to be looking at when we're pulling in data from, in this case, the Postgres connector or whichever connector you're using. You could use the filtered schema tab to select which tables you want Julius to look at, right? So here in this database, I have something called product.companies, product.events, product.feature adoption, etc. Likewise, I have all of the different columns and different types of columns that we have within each one of those tables. Right. In this example, I only really want to look at, let's say, my marketing data. So I'm going to select the marketing attribution. I'm going to select the marketing campaign lifecycle, all of the other marketing related ones that I want to demonstrate today. So here, let me select all of these. By default, if you select nothing, it's just going to be all the tables by default. So here I've selected all of the different marketing related tables. And that's all I want to do. I'm just going to click Save. And then finally, we have learned information. Right now, this is going to appear blank because I started the connection all over from scratch. Remember, I deleted my old connector I had and just set up a brand new one. But as we initially work with Julius, and I'll show you this right after this, you'll see this populated, and we'll actually come back here. But this is where Julius will show, hey, this is what this table or this column is used for. This is what's stored in this column in this table, and a little bit more of that context, just so we could query a little bit more accurately or more quickly in the future. And we'll walk through that right now. So here you can actually click Start Chat, or you could just go to the new chat button in the upper left. And you could select, now we have our database right here. We could select that connector. And we'll see this connect here. Sometimes this might error out. Sometimes it's really, really quick. If you ever do run into any issues, I'm just going to refresh the page and see. But 95% of the time this works. 100% of the time I do this in webinars, it usually doesn't work the way it should, which is really, really funny. You actually watch all the recordings where I try to do the same exact step, and I'll do it 9 times out of 10 perfectly fine. And then one time I'll do it live in the webinar. It just doesn't want to work. So it looks like it's stalling out right now. I'm going to start a new chat again. I'm going to do the same exact thing I just did. I don't think I changed anything. Let me just refresh the page. Didn't change anything last time. Everything is the same. Let me go back here. My data connectors, I was able to start a chat, able to select the database. I know I'm not crazy. I'm only a little crazy when it comes to this stuff. And this is again where I start to blab a little bit. But when I set it up, right, I think everyone could see in the recording, it worked perfectly fine. I was able to connect to it and actually even see this stuff. Let me try this again one more time for good luck. One more time. Oh, it might just be, oh, I see it. I think I'm not connected to a sandbox here in the upper left. That's probably why it's not connecting. Okay, let me try this one more time. I'm going to go here. I'm going to refresh my tab and see if I'm able to connect or not. Just start a brand new chat and we'll wait for this first. Okay, looks like I'm connected now. Now I'm connected. All right, so that's where I went wrong. I need to wait for my sandbox to connect. So I have my sandbox connected here in the upper left, here, and then now I'm just going to connect to the database. Right? Wrong? Yeah, right. Okay. See, I'm not crazy. I'm only 45% crazy, which is anyways, able to connect there. TLDR, double check that your sandbox is connected in the upper left before trying to connect your data connector, like I just did. If it's orange and it says connecting, chances are it's not going to be able to connect to your data connector. But here we go. So I connected that Postgres database that I had earlier, and now we could actually see over here in the right column all of the different tables that I have available, and specifically in the marketing case, the tables and the columns that I had filtered out before. We're going to let this expand and just see. Using a data connector is similar to just like uploading a file, right? You could just ask any question that you have. Julius, in this case, instead of just writing the Python code initially, it's going to write whatever SQL language to pull the data from your database before writing any follow-up Python code to analyze the data, right? And we'll see that in a second here. I'm just going to ask Julius, can you visualize and show me marketing spend by channel? And we'll see this. Julius is going to think through. It's going to pull the data with a PostgreSQL query. We'll see that here. Once it gives it some thought. I am kind of suspicious that I'm not really connected since it did take a while for me to connect here, but we'll see. Kind of suspicious here. Let's see here. If I go to a new chat, I'm able to connect, right? Everything's working. I'll give it 5 more seconds before I'm going to just reset everything. And this is how I resolve most of my issues with Julius, at least. Here, I'm going to stop everything. I'll go to connected. Here, I'm just going to press reset and then just restart the container here. Again, this resolves like 95% of the issues. I was a little bit suspicious seeing this connected last time. So I'm just going to refresh everything and then try this one more time. And hopefully this doesn't run into any issues. All right, so it says successfully restarted. I'm going to wait until this turns green. And we'll see if that's actually the case. There is something to do. Oh, looks like not connected. There we go. Connecting. There is something to doing these webinars around 1 p.m. I think it's one of the more busier times at Julius. Not saying that that's related, but if I'm a little suspicious or a little superstitious, usually this is where things don't really go to plan. But we'll try it out again. And we'll see how this goes. I'm going to refresh one more time here and see if I'm not connected. There we go. All right, let's try this one more time. Okay, I have this going. Then I am going to connect to that database again. All right. Next, I'm going to ask that same exact question. Can you show me marketing spend by channel over time? Yeah, this is abnormal. Now, I'm going to flag this to the team here. Let me try it in a different window and just see if it's a thing that's going on. Okay, we're going to switch over here. This happened, I think, the last webinar. I'm going to flag this to the team here. I'm going to switch over to my other window I got open. It might be something with this account, maybe. Go to my OBS here. I'm going to switch our window over to capture. Let's do this one. And I'm going to switch off this one. Apologies for this. Julius Schreiner. And video capture device. This guy. Ta-da. Okay, here we go. Back at the same exact UI. I have the same exact demo database. I'm going to start a new chat. We're going to open up the demo database. And this connects instantly versus the other one. I'm not sure why. I'm gonna double check this later. And then you can do the same exact query. Show me marketing spend over time. Right, just a little suspicious here. We'll see how this goes. Okay, here we go. Now it looks like it's working. So it's thinking, now it's looking at the data tables. So you can see that. And then now here's where I was talking about earlier. We're writing a SQL query. So here it's grabbing the relevant data from my marketing Postgres database. And now it's generating the Python in order to analyze that. And then afterwards, visualize it as well. And here it looks like it actually visualized it. So the flow there is very similar to just uploading files again. Normally, when you upload a file, we'll write Python code in order to analyze and visualize it. In this case, since we're not uploading the file, we're going directly to the source. We need to write a SQL query to pull the data into Julius, and then we'll analyze and visualize it with the Python code. So here we can see daily marketing spend over time. Besides just the need to upload data, right? I think the data connector, you don't really need to do that anymore. The other really handy thing is if that database is being updated, periodically, or it's being updated with live data. For example, if this metric is changing over time or refreshes, that's the other cool benefit of these data connectors is we're going right to the source. If you're making additional analysis, or if you need to do reporting every single week, you could repeat that analysis with live data without needing to download it or upload it. It's all fresh data, and you could refresh that analysis over time. And I'll actually show you that here, right? So here we could actually click this schedule button, schedule this to run daily or weekly. That's going to open up this table. And here you could actually schedule this analysis now to be run. Again, it's going to pull from my Postgres database, whatever interval that you want it to be refreshed at, and have it delivered to you at whichever time of day or day of the week as well. Cool. So that's, again, I think one of the biggest benefits of using data connectors is first, you don't have to use or download or upload files anymore. You could just simply go straight to the source. And second, it's all live data. If you have weekly reporting that you're doing, you can have it all done for you once the analysis is all done and set up. All right, I'm going to switch back to my other window because I want to demonstrate one other really cool benefit of using. Oh, look, it worked. It just took a little bit of time. 120. Yeah, that's not normal. It should not take 2 minutes, but that's something I'll flag to the team. So yeah, one other benefit you have of doing the analysis with the data connectors, you could actually continue your conversations directly in Slack. You could add Julius' Slack agent to your Slack channel, which I've done over here. And you could ask all of those same exact questions in Slack. And again, since you don't have to upload the files, Julius will just pull from your data connector automatically. So here I'll do this again. I'll do at Julius. How much did we, or let's do it a little more structured. Can you show me how much we spent on Google Ads over time? We'll try this here. So what's going to happen? Julius is going to first show you the hourglass emoji. It's on it. And then what's happening in the background is it's actually starting a new chat with the data connector that I had set up earlier on that same exact account. It's going to run the analysis for me. When it's done, either generating the key insights or visualizations, it's going to return those back in Slack in the same exact thread. And we'll see that here. You can see the previous analysis I had done. So I had asked Julius earlier when I was testing to make sure everything was working for this webinar. Julius, can you show me marketing spend by channel? It returned pretty much the same sort of chart that I had in that last visualization, showing me marketing spend over time. Here I have all of the spend by channel, and then it also has some of the key insights too. All right, looks like Julius white check marked my message, and I'll show you here. Okay, so here it's trying to actually pull from the data connector. I'm going to try it one more time. I'll say, Julius, can you connect to my database? And this is, again, where it's handy to just name your data connectors, something that you'll easily remember. My database, that's what I called my Postgres connector. And look for marketing spend for Google Ads. We'll see if this works. The other cool thing here, if you are on a team, right, and if you do have folks, most times when you have a Slack channel, you have multiple people in it. The other cool thing, it looks like it didn't want to do it here. Port data connectors D. I think it's still trying to connect to the wrong one. I am signed into this one, database, this one. But essentially, in a nutshell, this is essentially what it'll look like when it comes up. Not sure why it's not connecting right now. I'll say, Julius, can you show me marketing spend by channel? We'll try this one out here. As I was saying, as you use data connectors with your team, the cool thing here is that people can see the results that are coming in, or the errors in this case, but they can see the results and they can also ask follow-up questions too, right? So here on this one, I could say like, hey, can you, Julius, can you visualize this for me? For example. That's one of the benefits, is that folks can ask follow-up questions, but the other cool benefit here is that it's sort of inspiring in a way, or sparks curiosity, just seeing the questions that other people are asking. Similar to if you have like an analytics channel and people are asking your data team for dashboards or clarifications on any insights that you have. Same exact thing when working with Julius we've seen. It's been really, really cool just to see folks' questions that they're asking Julius, and then also just seeing the results, especially because I know a lot of teams out there spend a lot of time in Slack. Cool, so we'll give this a shot here. And then the other last thing I'll cover really briefly here is if we go back to the data connectors, now that we've used it, right, I could go back to that custom instructions panel here, and I'll go to the learned information. And now you can see some of the different columns that we had just pulled, and then Julius's own understanding of this. So this marketing.campaign lifecycle channel is for a text column containing channel names, is intended to join to these specific tables, etc. Right? So as you continue to use Julius over time, this will continue to grow, right? It'll know more and more about the columns that you're using and the relationship between other columns and tables. And what you can do when you get to that point is you can even freeze it. Once everything looks, accurate and there's nothing else to learn, you could freeze the schema. No other changes are going to be made. And likewise, you can go in here and you can actually edit these as needed too. So if there's specific context or relationships or other data that you want to put in there, you can also do so accordingly. Cool. So it looks like we're still working through this this query over here. But what we've done here in this case is just create an Ask Data channel. We've done this internally, and we've seen other customers, some of our customers do this, is they create an Ask Data channel, add folks who are typically pinging one-off ad hoc questions to their data team, and then using Julius, at least for the first pass or first initial questions that you might be asking your data connectors, right? So whether it's something related to marketing spend, like I'm trying to do in this case, or things that you're doing related to finance or even revenue operations, or even product questions that you might be having. A lot of customer success people and account managers that I know also usually have nonstop questions, because most folks are data obsessed or data hungry, right? There's always something to be answered about how your accounts are doing or maybe how your customers are using your product, right? So instead of pinging your data team, once you have the data connector set up and you either have the specific tables that you want Julius to use, the data dictionary if you have one, learned information, and all the other things that might go into querying the data correctly, typically all of the stuff that a data team might be doing, at least on that first pass, you could help equip all of the teams across your organization with a tool to help just answer their own questions and self-serve themselves in a way. So here we see Julius had returned finally. Can you visualize this for me? It said, here's the visualization showing total market spend by paid channel. And then you can see this over time as well. And I'm going to go back to my original thread. I think this is probably where I'm running into issues, is because I have a Google Ads account that I really just haven't set up quite yet. It's getting them kind of mixed up because I'm not specifying. But that's essentially how you could use Julius in Slack. Really, really handy. All right, I'm going to actually remove this Google Ads account, and I'll show you how to set this up as well. So this is the other third type of connector that we have outside of just the typical data warehouses or databases, which you see here. We have Google Ads and Meta Ads. We work with a lot of different marketers and especially marketing agencies too. Really common for you to have a lot of data living in your Google Ads, Meta Ads, or other associated tools too. I know marketers' toolboxes are huge. I know from experience, because I'm helping run a lot of the marketing stuff here, get a lot of exposure to all the different services and talking with users. So many different ways that you can measure marketing, or at least making all these different levers and tools that you're using that affect your marketing as well. Google Ads being one of them. So I just connected my Google Ads account, and I'm going to connect to this one here, which is my demo account for Google Ads. Now I'm going to go and try and start a chat with it again. Hopefully this one works the same way. But I'm going to click on Julius Dev Google Ads, and we'll see that this hopefully connects. If not, I wouldn't be surprised. I think I'm just running into issues today on this account. If this takes longer than 25 seconds, I'm going to switch over to that other window I had. But as this is loading, I'll talk through, just like you have in your Google Ads Manager or your Meta Ads, Meta Business account, right? You have all the different campaigns that you are either currently running or have previously ran. You have the ads or the ad sets that you're running. And then for Google Ads specifically, you have all the different keywords and terms that you're running too, right? What Julius can do is it can look across all of those, the active ones or the historical ones, and can help you go through, and it looks like we're in an issue, go through and understand more about your CAC, or maybe your click-through rates, or all of the other metrics related to your marketing performance, including your ROAS too. I'm going to go back to my OBS here, and I'm going to switch back over to the window that was working earlier. So I will close off Julia's demo, go back over here, and we're going to open up a new chat with my Google Ads account here that will show. And here, I think something up with that account. There's just no way it loads that fast. So here we see in the right-hand side, everything that I was just talking about. So from the different campaigns that you might be running, different ad groups or ads, and then also the assets as well. So here I could say, can you give me an overview of ads performance and campaign performance from the last 30 days. And just like the Postgres connector that we were using earlier, we're going to write a Google query, Google GAQL query, to pull the data from Google Ads in order to analyze it all within Julius here. And it works foundationally the same exact way. Here is all the different information we've learned about our Google Ads account. And this is how Julius is going to first try to pull that data into Julius. Again, you might run into some errors. Julius will work through those as it tries to query the data. And then we're going to visualize it or analyze it, or however you want to proceed with the data once you have it inside of Julius. So here I have overall account performance, including impressions, clicks, and spend. Campaign performance specifically, so the volume by campaign and also the secondary campaigns that we're running. Efficiency and ROI. And then finally, some recommendations and next steps too. This is a great bullet point here. I'm really glad this one mentioned it. So if you like next, I could either break down the campaign level summary metrics. So for example, if you want to look a little bit deeper into spend, clicks, conversions, CPA, or ROAS, or, and this is the other hidden or the actual unknown feature that most folks don't know, is you could use the keyword planner that you typically use in GA4 or in the Google Ads Manager. You could use that in Julius too. So I'll say, can you help me identify which keywords have volume that we might want to run campaigns and ads on next? So those who don't know, Google does have, if you've been inside of your Google Ads Manager, you could see the keyword planner, so you could see which keywords you might want to run ads on. Likewise, you could see historical volume or how Google estimates the amount of volume, and also the difficulty for breaking into those keywords too. Here I'm just going to use this in Julius. Julius has access to that same exact tool, so we could do some keyword planning, maybe think through, hey, there's some untapped either channels or keywords that we might be wanting to do in our next Google ad campaigns. So let me try this out here. And alternatively, I think the other thing I'll mention is very similar to meta ads as well. You can monitor the different assets that you're actually running, and you can actually see the performance, conversions, everything, same exact way. We write a query to pull the data into Julius, and then we analyze it and visualize it as needed. All right, so here we're going to pull in the data. So we queried it using the GAQL, that's Google Ads query language. We're going to run the code, and then we're going to try to visualize it accordingly. But yeah, I mentioned we have a lot of customers. We've chatted with a lot of marketers. I think it's been one of our key focus areas recently, just to understand, like, hey, what is the pain point, or what are they actually trying to use Julius for, right? And we've heard from we've heard from hundreds of marketers. We've also heard in our chats from marketing agencies too. That's the sort of surprise bucket that we've been talking with. Not uncommon for marketing teams or marketers specifically to have a lot of data everywhere. And if you think about agencies, they're working with multiple different customers or multiple clients. So they have a lot of data that they're typically trying to wrangle with. A lot of folks try to do this in Google Sheets. We ourselves do a lot of our own marketing campaign tracking inside of Google Sheets. I think it's one of the pain points of working with Google Ads and Meta Ads is the tooling is really not the most friendly. So you need to use some way to organize your campaigns when you're trying to plan them out. But even measuring performance, you typically download reports, and if you want to connect that to other tools, maybe your email campaigns that you're sending out, or connect it to your actual product database to see how everything overlaps, you can't really do that easily inside of Google Ads. So that's why folks will download the data and either make a Google Sheet, or from what we've been hearing from users, connect it to Julius so you can join everything together. So here we see the different spends, and here's where Julius is starting to estimate, first from our previous keywords, what we've had success with. And then likewise, some of the different examples of, hey, maybe you should try out these different keywords or variants of these keywords that might have more volume, right? So I'm going to go back over to my data connectors now. The cool thing about the Google Ads account is if you have access to multiple accounts, right? So for example, if you have access to like 5 different Google Ads accounts, you could select all of those different ones without needing to overlap the data as needed, right? So if you are in that bucket of marketing agencies or marketing consultants who are working with multiple clients, you don't have to worry about, exposing any data to anyone who doesn't need it. You could just keep everything completely separate. Again, when you just go into the data connectors page and you go to set up the Google Ads, you could select specifically from the dropdown here all of the different accounts that you might have available to you, or whichever ones you do have the standard permissions applied. So that's one way that we've helped address this. Same thing for meta ads as well. You might have any number of meta ads accounts. Even internally, we have several accounts that we're using. You could streamline which ones you want to actually pull into Julius by selecting them from the selector dropdown there. Finally, outside of Meta ads and Google ads, we have what we call MCPs. This is Model Context Protocol. It's a new way of connecting to either your third-party apps or some of the applications that you might be using that do have support for MCPs. So things like Stripe, Zapier, Intercom, Notion, and GitHub all have MCPs that are available out of the box. All you have to do is just click it, and then you can connect to it by logging in accordingly with your Stripe or whichever tool you're trying to log into's credentials. Same thing for Intercom, Zapier, and Notion. The benefit there is once you do connect to one of these, you could just, same exact way as using our data connectors, pull any data that you have from these MCPs. So you could pull, for example, revenue, subscriptions, refund, all of your other Stripe analytics and metrics into Julius. And likewise, you could do the same thing for Notion. And for some of these, depending on which tool you're using, you could push things to them as well. So you could even summarize your findings from Julius and make a Notion page out of it. Or you could use a Zapier connector to send an email out through whatever email provider using their connector there. Or you could use Intercom to get information about how your tickets are, or your conversations are, or what common trends you're seeing, and you could use that to help escalate things accordingly. So that's the other one. It's the most new connector that we have. So MCPs in general are pretty new. But again, we have everything documented out in our docs here. You can go to the Data Connectors tab, and then under MCP, you can see all the different MCPs we support, and then also some frequently asked questions as well, too, if that's something you're interested in. And while we're on the topic of support, if you do have any questions, or if you haven't already, I would recommend joining our Julius Community Slack. Great place for you to introduce yourself, maybe tell us a little bit more about you and what you're working on, or showcase some of the work that you're doing. But also, if you run into any issues or any errors, you could reach out directly here. Great way for either someone in the community to reach out and help support, or for our own team who actively monitors this channel as well. Likewise, if you need any other information, you can go to our help center here. If you click on the 3 dots in the upper right corner and you just click on help, you'll find our help center here. If there's something a little bit more nuanced that you don't want to post into the Slack channel, you can post it here. So if you have a question or a billing issue, you can report it accordingly as well. If there's any questions, feel free to post them in the chat. I want to say thank you so much for joining and sticking through this. One of these days, I will go through one of these data connector webinars without running into any issues. It's a sign that we're building towards something, though. I think if you're not running into errors or you're not willing to do it live, what is the point? So hopefully this is a little bit more clear on what a data connector is and how you could use it. Again, if you're joining us late or you haven't watched the whole webinar, we're going to share the recording afterwards. We covered how to set up your Google Drive, OneDrive, and SharePoint connectors. We walked through how to do the data connector setup for a Postgres connector and how to actually use it in a chat. Likewise, we showed you how to use this in Slack once you have the Julius Slack agent set up. And then finally, we walked through the Google Ads account too. That's something that a lot of marketers use, and really briefly touched on MCPs, which are still fairly new. We do these webinars once a week. Feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Likewise, you could look at our Luma, which has all of our upcoming webinars as well. And likewise, you could take a look at, no, that's it. Just Luma and Google and YouTube for our upcoming events as well. In the feedback survey that you'll get after this webinar, feel free to let us know if there's any specific topics that you want covered in the next ones. Next week, we have our notebooks webinar that we'll cover, and then likewise, we'll have an onboarding webinar the following week too. Thanks again so much for joining us. If you have any other questions, feel free to post them in the chat or reach out to us at team@julius.ai, and we'll get back to you. And I want to say thank you again for sticking with me through today's webinar, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.